All right, welcome to the podcast. I want to thank our writer-director, Ole Bornedal. He did Nightwatch, which is a cult classic in Nordic thriller, and there's a new one coming out, a sequel, Nightwatch Demons Are Forever on Shudder. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So what I thought was really interesting is watching the original, watching the sequel here. The original really has a cult classic. It kind of I don't want to say launch, but popularized the Nordic thriller, and it's so character heavy. And I really thought, what a great film to then come back to 30 years later for a sequel. And I was wondering if you can kind of walk me through that process of what brought you to a sequel.
Well, it's been a long journey, and Nightwatch has in some ways, become my destiny. You know, the original Nightwatch from '94 was actually my debut as a movie maker. And a couple of years later, I did the American remake with Notorious Weinsteins and rewrote the screenplay together with Steven Soderbergh. Actually, that was quite a good project, even if you should never do the same thing twice. Never
And they
try
had
to
Ewan
copy
McGregor in it, right?
Ewan, and I had the most wonderful cast: Patricia Arquette, Ewan, Josh Brolin, John C. Reilly, Nick Nolte, Brad Dourif,
Wow.
so you name it. But unfortunately, the film that was released was not really my film. But that's another story, you know. That is one of the typical Miramax stories. I don't
Oh,
think we should go there.
that's okay. No,
No, but it's just a long story. And so uh, that was not obviously, having a film released that you're not yourself quite satisfied with that's never. It's a hard experience for any filmmaker, of course, and so many of my colleagues experience it now and then. And that's, well, I did work for Miramax a couple of years as script supervisor, and I produced Guillermo del Toro's first American movie, Mimic. So there was some really, really good, there was some really interesting upsides in working in the US as well. And I've been there a couple of times since, but now located in Denmark, I have, it's a little bit more easy to work as a creative soul in Denmark than overseas because, basically I have full power of the movie. I can do more or
yeah.
less whatever I want to do. And I just felt like revisiting the characters again in a new Nightwatch some 30 years later, but had given it a thought over the years, but couldn't come up with a really right idea. I don't think a thriller, a horror film is just for the horror and for the thrill. It needs a good basic character story. And I was looking for that because actually, no, it sounds a bit arrogant, but it's quite easy to scare an audience. It's not difficult to make a scary movie, but
Okay.
it's difficult to make a scary movie with a psychological layer in it, which you can relate to and you can actually feel sometimes even is heartbreaking, emotional. But once I came up with the story that, of course, my two leads from the original movie, Martin and Kalinka, played by Sofia Koppel and Nicolai Coster-Waldau, that they had given birth to a daughter, Emma, who now is 23 years old or so, and that she's been brought up in a family that has been really, really tormented about what happened. And it's like the PTSD family of all times.
Yeah.
The mother committed suicide. Then I could see I had a good story here because it was something that no one ever talked to Emma about, what happened in '94.
Yeah.
And every family, on this planet have sort of a white elephant in the room, something you don't want to talk about, a secret. Demons Are Forever is about finding a dark family secret. And that I could connect with, and hopefully the audience too.
So kind of like exploring a generational trauma.
Yeah, could say so.
What I really appreciated about the original Nightwatch is yes, it's a thriller, and it is in that Nordic thriller kind of genre, and kind of popularize that. What I always appreciate about those films is they do tend to be character heavy, which is nice. You're not relying on spectacle like typical American audience would expect. Nicolai Coster-Waldau, I mean, it was his screen premiere, which I thought was fascinating, seeing him in his first movie versus now after being on like Game of Thrones and everything, and then he comes back to the original character and exploring that.
Yeah.
What I thought was really fascinating with this character in the first film is, yes, it's a thriller, but it feels more like a coming of age story of this young man who's very impressionable. He's got a toxic friendship, with this gentleman who's kind of gaslights him into situations he's unexpected.
Yeah.
But he has that innocent youth, right?
Yeah.
He goes through this trauma, he grows, he becomes a more mature man, and then even his toxic friend has to make personal sacrifices for him. So, like, there is this arc of growth. But what I appreciate is you revisit that relationship in the sequel 30 years later, and we still get to see a little bit of that youthful energy in Nicolai's character. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene in a football stadium, which I thought was perfect and really kind of brings that out. Did you find playing around with visiting that character again to be pretty fun?
Even two old white men still have the kids in themselves. It's still there inside, the playful little kid, and it was a beautiful scene to do with the two guys. Kim Bodnia is a very interesting actor, of course, and Nicolai, and see them unfold not just a friendship, but a really loving friendship. That's certainly quite beautiful. So yeah, and I would like to talk more about that, but we can't because then we're gonna spoil the plot of the movie.
Yeah, I don't want to have any. I don't want to have any spoilers, but I just think an arc like that is pretty fascinating because you don't really get to see a lot of films that go back to a character from the 90s and say, like, what do they look like today, 30 years later?
Yeah.
Was there any kind of cautions that you wanted to take when approaching his daughter and making her the central character, because you want to explore the same thing, but you don't want to put her on the same journey? Was there anything that you wanted to explore with his character in the first film that you weren't really able to get to, so you said, I'm going to do it this time through his daughter?
No, I don't think so. I just felt that it was quite fascinating to focus on his daughter and again make a sort of coming of age story about her search for truth, and expose her for basically the same stuff as he was once exposed to. Watching her and the new generation in sort of the same setting was just visually interesting for me to explore. And that's why I think that's what actually in this film, I don't know if this film is very, very scary or if it's very emotional. I would like it to be more emotional but, than scary, because I think that's the most important thing. That's what interests me the most, is to work with the characters, work with the actors, and see this young girl in search for truth. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. Luckily, the girl who plays Emma is my own daughter, so she was not only exploring her father Nicolai Coster-Waldau's traumas, she was also exploring mine, I guess. So she got a look into the dark mind of her dad,
Fascinating.
seen from a professional point of view. But we know each other and we work very well together. And he's a very talented star, and she was also starring in my previous movie, The Bombardment. No, it's just fun to work with these guys. Of course, obviously my daughter, but also very fun to work again with Nicolai, which I hadn't really seen for 30 years. We tried to do an American film together, but unfortunately we never succeeded.
Was he excited to get back into the part and rediscover that character?
Yeah, he was very, as I myself was, I was very skeptical in the beginning, because I think visiting the story was dangerous, and he was just as skeptical as I was. But one thing that always overcome your skepticism is a good screenplay. So, I mean, you can always set rules up for movies and rules up for stories and rules up for what can you say and what can you not say and what can you do and what can you not do. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that counts, and it's if you have a good screenplay, that
Yeah.
overrules anything else. And he was really excited, so it was good to see him again.
When I find myself writing a screenplay, whether it's, a spec script or a write for hire project, I always find myself putting a bit of myself and the journey I'm on into it, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And I look at the original Nightwatch. You were a younger man. You were writing about a younger man trying to discover himself. Now, with the sequel, Demons Are Forever, you've got a daughter. You've lived life, 30 years of experience behind you. Did you find yourself really working that into the new script?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem to overcome writing for these four young kids in the story is, of course, that they are some 40
Yeah,
years or so
that's so
younger than
true.
I am. So we had some really, and I'm really, really aware of that. I mean, I'm not a stupid old. I consider myself being, when I
Okay.
am in my screenplay, I know for sure that some of it sounds like bullshit, especially in the
Okay.
mouth of the young kids. So I told them, please attack these lines and make them yours, because I cannot write. I
Yeah.
guess you cannot write either to a 70-year-old young anarchistic American. It's difficult. The language always develops. So occasionally they would come to me, Alex Høye Anderson and Fanny, and would say, Dad, I can't say that. Are you crazy? We gotta change this. That's not how we express ourselves. So that's really, really funny.
Yeah.
But I think, it's the most important and the most wonderful thing is just to work with the screenplay. I think that's where all the secrets are. And I think it's a bit flawed today that I think I watch a lot of screenplays that should never have been made, where you feel that the film has been packed because of a star, or perhaps
Yeah.
because of some clever agents or whatever it is, but it's always the screenplay, and it's so hard. It's so difficult. I think we have the most difficult task in the world within the creative business. That's writing a good screenplay. I know some of my very good friends are very good painters or very good musicians, composers,
Yeah.
very good novelists, and I'm just telling them, guys, you got the easiest job in the whole wide world. I'm not only writing a novel, I'm also writing a picture. I'm
Yeah.
also writing choreography. I'm
Hmm.
writing narrative. You got to be able to do everything. So hail to us. We are the heroes.
Unsung for most of the part
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
I think Fanny did an incredible job. She really is a powerful talent. And was there any kind of an issue like directing your own daughter?
No, we've done that several times before. Actually,
Okay.
she was 6 years old when I used her in
Oh
a film
wow.
in a small part, and I did a huge television series called 1864, where she also starred in. And as I mentioned before, we did a very successful Netflix movie together, The Bombardment, which you can watch in Netflix America. And she
Okay.
plays one of the leads there. So no, we've always been together. No, we can talk about everything. She's very, very talented and easy to work with. Extremely disciplined. Unfortunately, there is such thing as nepotism, especially I guess in Denmark. So she's had a really hard time fighting that, because the more bitter, poisonous voices would say that she only got the job because of her dad, but never, never in my life. I would never give her a job if she wasn't the right for it. And I think she carries this very fragile mix of being extremely strong and very vulnerable at the same
Yeah,
time in this
I
movie.
agree.
And that's definitely what the character needed.
I had no idea watching the film that she was your daughter. I wasn't paying attention
No,
for things like that. So just when you hit me with that, I was like, oh my gosh, of course. Now knowing, realizing the last name is the same, yeah. But no, she really is fantastic in the film. Can I ask you a couple of visual subtext things you put in both films that kind of carry over? And these aren't spoilers, it's just my mind's interest. There's a couple of scenes you would focus on with the Nightwatch sitting on guard, and there would be bugs inside of a light above them, and I was just curious if there was any specific intent behind that.
It's just a feeling. I mean, I sometimes compare it to actually you are doing a painting on a canvas and you feel that you need a little bit more yellow there. But if I should dive into it more philosophical or whatever you want to call it, it's just that something else is happening in the room. There are sort of, I always like the feeling, especially when you do a suspense thriller, that you have your characters and they are acting and they're in a plot and they're in a narrative, but there's something watching them. There's a sort of a god. There's a god above them. There's something watching them, looking at these stupid little creatures, saying, "This is going to be the same story as always. This is going to go to the."
Oh wow!
And I think perhaps what the moth symbolizes is that something that has nothing to do with this, with plot or anything, is still existing there in the room. I just watched with great joy the new Netflix series Ripley by Steven Sellian, which I find absolutely excellent. And I noticed that he and his DP in almost every picture make sure that there's something in the composition of the picture. There's something dead. There's an ashtray. There's an ashtray. There's a sculpture. There's a cat watching Andrew Scott, who's playing Mr. Ripley, this insane fucking sadistic killer. And it just gives you the feeling that, okay, we are telling a story, but there's something witnessing the story. Not just me, but something also within the picture watching. And it gives a certain uncertain feeling to it all. And I think that's brilliant. So I guess that's what I'm trying to aim for.
I can see it. There's also in the Nightwatch guards booth or room, there's an old picture of a man, and it's in both films. And the line is, "It's always been there." And I'm just curious if there's anything behind that.
No, it's just when I did the original Nightwatch, I just read this book by Roland Barthes, the French philosopher, about photography. And he had this photography of Louis Payne in his book, and he underlined it with a sentence saying, this is Louis Payne, who was part of the plot assassinating Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Here he is sitting in a death cell, and then the line said, he's dead and he's gonna die. So that was the absurdity of the picture, that you're watching a man, he's dead and he is gonna die. He's waiting for his death sentence. And for some reason, I just felt emotional watching this young man sitting there waiting for his execution. Doing this sequel here, I just felt to pay homage to the old one, to put it in there again. So that weirdos and kind of crazy blokes like you can ask the Christians.
All right, thank you for that. So my final question is there I've never been hit that hard before on my own show.
I'm sorry.
It's cool, man. I look for the little things, so I'll own it. All right, so I like to end my show by asking my guests if there's anything I didn't ask them that I should have.
No, I don't think so. I hope you enjoyed the film and the audiences in the US will do as well. Even if I know Americans don't watch subtitled movies, but
I think that's changing.
Is it? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think it is. The whole this film was a hit, like Nightwatch was a hit. Let's remake it for an American audience. I think that's an old school way of thinking.
Okay.
I'm seeing more. Let's watch the original. Like I watched the original Nightwatch.
Okay.
I never saw the remake with Ewan McGregor. So
we had the AI or from a company that actually could take the whole movie and then with AI make it American and make them all speak American without seeing any lip.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and that's something.
new technology.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Subtitles don't bother me.
No.
And I think more and more people are watching them now. So it's good. It opens up a whole, genre of films for people that have been kind of closed off.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Take care.